Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining. My name is Cheryl Stukes, and I am the Chief Marketing Officer here at Gravity. We are so grateful to the team at Avenu for inviting us to join you today to be part of this important discussion around what you all know as the ACFR, but those that aren't from the industry might know it as the Annual Comprehensive Financial Report, and specifically how automation is helping what has historically been a time-sensitive, high-stakes process. And to help lead the conversation today are two experts in the field. First, we have George Gretzis, who is a former city manager with responsibilities over the finance department, who is now at Avenu, who understands these daily challenges firsthand. And second, we have Anna Vaschuk, who's a financial automation expert at Gravity to help agencies streamline their operations. Welcome to you both.
Good to see you.
You too, George. And I'm going to actually start right with you. We're going to jump in here and waste no time. I know that you've been working in government finance for a number of years. And from your perspective, I would love if you could take us through what the ACFR preparation looked like for you.
Sure. Before we get into the actual preparation, though, I would like to spend a few minutes just talking about ACFR, particularly because it's almost like this unforgotten document, or I best like the unloved document, because staff works really hard to put it together. And then somehow everybody feels it just sits on a shelf and it doesn't have a whole lot of purpose. But it really has. It's an important document that has a lot of purpose. And so in my mind, the ACFR is a great opportunity for cities to tell their stories. You know, what's going on in your city? What are the good things that are happening, both in terms of the improvements that the city is making and also on the economic level? You know, how well is your economy doing? How well are the finances of your city doing? The improvements that you're making, the good things that are going on that you really don't have a whole lot of opportunity to explain to people. And then also, if there are some things that need attention, you know, what are the not so good things? And it gives you an opportunity to kind of explain away or explain what's going on and how you're making improvements to fix things that might be broken. So to me, the ACFR document is an important document, not only for the financial experts, but also at the political level and the governmental level. I think it's an important thing for our city to really pay a whole lot of attention to. Like, who cares about this document? It's 150 to 300 pages. Well, we know the auditors care about it because the auditors look at it as their all that information in there is relevant to your annual audit. But also the bond rating agencies look at it. I can't tell you how many times I've been sitting in an office down on in New York City talking to the bond rating agencies, and there it is. It's right there, and they have gone through it, scrubbed it, because they're going to be responsible for deciding how good your credit worthiness is, and that's obviously the determinations are going to mean the difference between the cost of your debt, and then also your state oversight agencies. They look at this document as well. And if you're lucky, and I say lucky because if you've really had a good opportunity to tell your story, you really want the elected officials to be looking at this document, as well as members of your team, because that really shows a whole lot of things that they may not be aware of. I think just a good example would be your fund balance, right? It's how well are you doing with your fund balance, and other things in the financial health of the city and the economic development of the city that really people don't always pay attention to, including your citizens and members of the press, journalists, bloggers these days, right? Podcasters, investors for sure. And I will say that when sitting with investors to try to convince them to build in our city, I have seen them clearly. They had been looking at the ACFR and had looked through and noticed certain elements of it that were important to them to ensure that their investment in the city would be safe. And then finally, of course, last but not least, most importantly, the staff, because they spent a whole lot of time preparing this document. And it really is, well, I'll say this. You asked me about the preparation. On average, I'd say staff says that it takes anywhere from 1 to 3 months to prepare this document. So it depends on how large the organization is, depends on how large the staff is, how many staff members are allocated to that particular project. But it is cumbersome. It's a long process. And that preparation comes at a cost. Because every time a staff member is focused on preparing that document, what is it that they're not doing? Well, there could be a lot of things that they're not doing. Well, for one thing is what city managers and the elected officials care about is what about the multi-year forecasting? What about the capital improvement planning? What about economic development analysis and policy analysis? And people in finance are really smart. They have the background to help with those types of things. And so when those staff are focused on putting a book together and not working on that, well, it does hurt your city in a lot of ways. Also, the day-to-day operations of the city, right? The finance team is a necessary component of that. So it's budget amendments, needs to go through finance, financial analysis of whatever departmental needs there are, whether it's to have something on an agenda item or trying to assess whether they can buy something or to make a decision. The finance team's attention in many cases is important. And, the procurement approvals and the grant tracking, all of that is things that the staff could be doing if not putting this book together. And what about the customer service support, right? Does the finance team have a role in that, right? So when billing questions come up, when they're trying to assist residents or vendors, what kind of reductions in services occur when the staff is working on the ACFR? And then technology improvements, right? We talk about the urgent and important. The urgent and important is putting that document together and meeting your deadlines. But equally as important is finding the time to explore technology advancements and figuring out what kind of software would help the operation. That takes time and attention. And when staff is putting the book together, again, that's one thing that kind of falls to the wayside. And then in some cases, an organization wants real-time financial reports, and they're working on the previous year, so that kind of can go to the wayside as well. And the revenue side of this is bringing in more revenue, right? How much time are we spending looking for grants and tracking the grants so we don't get clawbacks? And all of that is typically an important role for the finance team to be doing. And then I'd say maybe at the top of the list, and maybe I should have put it at the top of the list, is what kind of audits do the finance team do? Whether it's sales tax or hotel tax or any kind of other things that we're tracking internal operations. How much are we losing by not having our attention at those types of things? So those would be like the key things that you think about and say, geez, if only we weren't spending so much time on the CAFRA, what is it that we could be doing? The ACFRA, I say. And then one other thing I'd say is that when it comes to city managers, and I know the elected officials are very similar, is that we're constantly being hit for money. And if it's not from the public, it's from the staff. Everybody wants something. We need more police. We need more parks. We need more firefighters. I hear it all the time. I heard it all the time from staff. We need more this, more that. Well, the question I would have for anybody is, how often do you think I would get a call from somebody saying we need more accountants? Not many. In fact, none, zero. And the reason for that is because you don't necessarily see the efforts. They're the unsung heroes in the organization, but what they do is really important, and we never have enough. And also, as you're thinking about which positions could you actually justify from a return on investment perspective, accountants can always be more of a justifiable in ROI than, say, more parks, for example. And so that would be a thing that say, okay, so if it's going to be very difficult to get more accountants or more members of the finance team to support operations, what other strategies can we come up with so that we can attend to some of those other things that I mentioned within the existing resources? And so that then becomes a question of technology, right? What are the areas of operation for the ACFR preparation? And so when I mentioned 1 to 3 months, and that block of time where staff is working on it, it's a sensitive deadline, right? Mm-hmm. We have an accuracy issue, right? We got to make sure everything in there is accurate. In a lot of cases, we have staff working nights and weekends to meet the deadline. And there is a risk of high profile errors. People don't realize it, but for the people that hear from finance, just check with GFOA and see how many errors are detected during the GFOA review. If you're submitting your financial reports to GFOA, there's a ton of errors that they find. In fact, it's thousands. And so the idea that, you're on a deadline, that those types of crunch deadlines create high potential for errors, and in many cases embarrassing errors, because everything we do ends up public. So technology is our answer, right? And Avenu is a technology company. We have thousands of local governments that we provide software and service for. So we're always looking for ways to make technology a useful part of local governments' day, to make them more efficient and to make their burdens easier. And so right now, if you think about the ACFR, if the average finance team may be using Excel and Word to prepare this document, maybe Access, believe it or not, I've heard people using Access as database. Many have ERP systems, but they're not typically full service solutions when it comes to preparing the ACFR. And then what happens is these tools, we like Excel, we like Word, but when we're putting this thing together, the document, it's very clunky. You're jumping from software to service, software to software. You're converting to PDFs, cutting and pasting, images to formatting. All of that becomes very messy and complicated and time consuming. So we think about, what are the inefficiencies, right? One of it is data handling and preparation.
Mm-hmm.
It tends to be, the current processes tend to be slow and manual, and the potential for errors. You also have collaboration issues, right? So as you may be using Word, you might be using Excel. What else are you using, and how are we collaborating? Who's got which task, and how is the information cross-pollinating? And all of this can lead to errors. And particularly if there's an external auditor that gets involved, now you've got even more potential for errors. And then just the finalization of the book and the printing. You're rushing to get your book printed, and now you have formatting problems. You need somebody to review every page, and verifications every time there's a change that needs to be made. Just think about like the mad dash to the finish line. That's the problem when you've got so many different pieces to this puzzle. And then the review process, going through that manually with potentially multiple layers of approval, you're really talking about time and, again, potential for errors, and factor in personnel leave, and people get sick. Sometimes they have to take off, right? So you have all of that in the mix. So this is why when we talk about 1 to 3 months, a lot of that is really factored into the mix there. I hope that answered your question.
It did, and more, George. And I want to unpack what you said. And I appreciate you keeping me honest and taking a step back and really talking about, the importance of the document, right? I think sometimes the day-to-day reality of a lot of finance professionals is we're in the weeds, and we're focused on the preparation, and we're focused on getting this report out the door. And we forget that there's just so many important uses for it. So I appreciate you level setting on that and providing the perspective that you had in your years as city manager. You talked about a lot of things with respect to the preparation process: inefficiencies, resource constraint, collaboration, version control, the sprint to the finish with respect to printing and finalization. I would love to know, and there sounds like there's a whole bunch of moving parts. From your perspective, George, what was the biggest roadblock that your team faced during this time period?
Roadblock in terms of
yeah, I mean, you talked about a whole bunch of things, right? If you had to nail down one thing, would it really come down to time? Just the time it takes? I'm just trying to narrow it down.
I would say time and resources, really. And so you think about is, if we had more staff, maybe it wouldn't take 3 months. If we had more staff, maybe some of those other things that I talked about wouldn't go by the wayside. But the reality is that most finance teams are struggling with the resources that they have. They never have enough of what they need to do their jobs. And then on the technology side, it's always been, do we have the tools that we need?
Yeah, that's so helpful. Okay, and I'm going to come to you next, because I know that you hear a lot of these challenges day in and day out with our customers. And I would love to know from your perspective, a couple of questions. First, how you're seeing automation solve for some of these challenges. And then related question, if George's teams or previous teams was using the Gravity platform, what would have been different with their experience?
Yeah, thank you so much, Cheryl. Thank you so much, George, for your answer and questions and organizing this call. And you know what's wild? Automation has completely transformed how ACFR report is done today. Completely. I'm doing demos on a daily basis. And the first question that I'm asking before showing our application, Gravity, is how long does it take for you, client, to produce a report right now from start to finish? Some of them saying months, some of them saying 2 months. As George said, it's from 1 to 3 months. Literally months of manual work, chasing data, formatting that long table, formatting entire report, double checking every single piece of the report, and after if you will do adjustment, do it again and again and again. Now it takes minutes. You click one button, data is reflected inside the report. You click another button, it generates in the report. We help not only one city to cut its report time by 85%. And the reason it works so well because compliance is built in. GASB, GFA, GAP, it's all baked into the system. No need manually check for every little standard. The system just following it automatically, which means fewer headache and zero guessing, right? And another point that I want to say, errors. Like everyone knows that feeling, right? It's another game changer. Real-time validation inside Gravity checks mistakes immediately. So instead of discovering issue during a reconciliation, or as George said, every night or on the weekends, or worse, during an audit, you fix them on the spot, right? It's like having a second set of eyes on everything without a human error. Integration is smooth too. Think about this. The system connects directly to ERP, to Avenu in our case, so there is no more manual data entry. No more saving historical trial balance or question, which trial balance I was using for producing the report. Financial data stays accurate and up to date at all the time. Another point that I want to make over here, do you remember the audit time, George, we just mentioned over here? From the audit perspective, it's a lifesaver, honestly. All financial reports are centralized in one place. So when the audits come knocking you in the door or you're not scrambling, everything is ready, organized, and easy to access for all details available any step all the way. And also, I want to speak about the cost. George, you also mentioned that. By cutting out manual processes, agencies save serious money with Gravity. I know one county, like personal in California, a team that was struggling with that because one portion of the report, OPEP portion, it was something that they was outsourcing for the consultant. Another portion of the report, for example, government-wide for the conversion entry, they was also outsourcing. So we saved them over $200,000 just from switching automation. And it's
and I just want to address the issue of cost, right? There's two ways to save, right? One is whatever outsourcing you're doing, right? Mm-hmm. But also when you're outsourcing, sometimes you're losing some control with that process, particularly in preparing for this report. But then also, how much is it costing you when you're diverting staff's attention away from other things? So like, how much does it cost you when you're not auditing? How much does it cost you when you're not doing long-term financial planning, right? Forecasting. All of those are costs as well.
Exactly. And it's also win for internal team. Think about this. When you remove repetitive, time-consuming task or this email back and forth, checking what is going on with my OPEB, staff can focus on something meaningful. Things like strategic planning and policy development. It's a huge boost for productivity if you will think about it. Plus, retention gets easier. A lot of finance staff feel burned out from the constant pressure from the auditors, from the directors, like from everywhere, right? Automating the tedious stuff gives them breathing room, which helps reduce turnover. Definitely. I really strongly believe in that. And at the end of the day, we need to remember why we are doing that, why we have ACFR, why we have this annual report, and why it actually exists. You said, Georgia, that it's like a business card of the city, right? Automation strengthens public trust. When your financial data is clear accurate, easy for community to access, and they know that in the end of the month, they will receive that annual report on the website, it shows accountability. That kind of transparency goes a long way in building confidence with taxpayers.
So, Anna, a lot of really big numbers that you threw out there, right? You talked about, for some customers, being able to cut the reporting time by 85%, another customer saving over $200,000. I imagine that there's a number of folks on the call, just like myself, that are very skeptical of these claims, right? So what I would love to know is, can you show us a real world example? Show us what this looks like.
Definitely. I think I will share right now my screen. Let me know when you will see it. And I will share a real story with you. Guys, do you see my screen right now?
Can see it now, yes.
Perfect. And let me share a real story. This is about the city of Columbus in Ohio. They were really struggling with their ACFR report preparation. Everything was done manually by a small team of 4 people. And the process took almost a month to finish. The worst part, auditors would request last-minute changes, and the team had to go back and redo large portion of the report again and again and again. When they started using Gravity from 2023, with automation, things changed fast. What used to make months, for example, this table of content chasing every single page reference, now generated automatically by the system. That's more than 85% time saving. Before automation, their team was stuck doing everything by hand, formatting tables, fixing the table of content, double checking every single number, and starting over things if things didn't match. It felt like going in a circle. After automation, our publisher engine takes care of all the little detail that makes report look clean and professional. Automatically creating table of content for easy navigation. Adding tab marks on the side on the page. Keeping margin and spacing even. Automatic number into the report. Over here, increase by, decrease by, surplus or deficit also was created automatically by Gravity. Embedding fonts so reports look the same everywhere. Ensuring ADA compliance. Generating high-quality PDF with clean text and sharp images. And just as an end, I want to say you just don't need to be a part-time designer for this. Everything become easier. The system handled the formatting, validate the number in real time, and pull the data straight from ERP. No more redoing the same work. One of the team members even said for me, yeah, it's a bit funny, but they said, now we finish with a smile and satisfaction instead of tears. But it wasn't just about the saving of time. Their report became more accurate. Audit findings went down and the approval process was much smoother. That's the kind of real impact automation brings. Less stress, better result, and team that finally feels in control.
That's fantastic. George, I'm going to come to you on my next question, because I would first of all love to know your first impressions of the output. And then number 2, if your team, your previous teams had this level of automation in their, when preparing their ACFR, what kind of difference would it have made?
Well, I think you have to go back to Anna's original premise here, which is if you're spending 1 to 3 months preparing this document and you can save 85% of your time, I mean, that really is revolutionary, right? It's sort of like the difference between preparing a document on a typewriter versus on a computer using Word, right? It completely changes the way you're going to prepare your report. And so what could you do with those savings? Well, think about it, right? If I could free up staff time 85%, I would focus them on those other issues that I mentioned before, which is likely cutting costs and saving money, and also bringing in more revenue. So it's really a whole bunch of things. And I would say that if you can veer staff away from manual tasks to automated tasks and save 85% of the time, then now you're just really talking about return on investment, right?
Yeah, that's fantastic. We're going to open it up now to some questions that have come in through the chat. The first one that I see here that came in, and I'll go to you on actually, I'll go to both of you on this one, because I think it's relevant, and I'm sure you get this question every single day. And George, it's related to what we had just talked about. If I'm a finance director looking for the best way to measure success after adopting an automation platform, what are those key KPIs that I should be looking at?
Well, I'd want to know how much time did you save using the system, right? So if you told me I saved 85% of my time, I did it in,
Yeah.
Instead of 3 months, I did it in a week, or whatever, that's a pretty good metric, right? The other one is we discovered less errors, right? We made way less mistakes through the process. In fact, our auditors found little to no errors, and or our GFOA review uncovered very, very few, if any, mistakes, right? All of those, I'd say, would be, an important discussion as to whether the software was worth it or not, right? So it sounds like with the staff time alone, that would be a pretty good metric.
Yeah, if I may answer for this question, I can say that first of all, I think it's team satisfaction. It's everything about people. And if team is satisfied with their work, think about the outcome. The second thing that I can mention is exactly the same, time saving. Teams can save up until 85% of their time. Why? Because we eliminate repetitive steps like manual data upload, statement generation, number validation, even formatting. What used to make these weeks now takes an hour, really. And cost efficiency. Since Gravity is a centralized system, there is no need to use multiple tools or consultant, as I mentioned before. It's all in one place.
Yeah, one other thing that you mentioned, which I found impressive, is that a lot of finance people, and it's not a criticism, but they're not designers, right? So they're not, so prettying up the document, making it look highly professional and polished, because it really is the image of the city. It presents a certain look and feel, and you're projecting professionalism. That's a lot to ask for from finance people, and it's also, in a lot of ways, a waste of their time, because that's really not where their expertise is, and they shouldn't be doing stuff like that. That really is for people who have, different skill sets and talents.
Exactly. They went to university not to be a part-time designer, right?
Exactly.
That's great. And I'm going to put you on the spot here, because we've had a couple of requests come in for an actual sort of show and tell. Can you actually show us how the product works? Is that something that you're able to do?
I think yes. Why not?
Go ahead. That'll really show how easy it is to use.
Love it.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you still see my screen. Is that correct?
Yeah, we still see the City of Columbus ACFR there. Oh, now we see the Gravity platform.
Perfect. And let's switch gears and do a quick demo while we're all here. I am sharing right now my screen, and I will walk you through a real ACFR workflow in Gravity. I'm really excited about it, to be honest. And what you can see right now is Gravity ecosystem home screen that operates on a role-based permission as managerial reporting tool, providing access to various models, as you can see here on my screen. Annual comprehensive financial report, budget book, popular annual financial report, quarterly, monthly, different report that you can think of. But for this demonstration, let's begin by exploring the layout of annual report. So this is an ACFR report model we're working on in Gravity. The structure followed the GFOA, GASB, and GAP requirements with the GFOA checklist available for any client, and right down to the formatting and document structure. Your team will still work with their familiar Word documents, Excel and Word document that right now currently everyone familiar with. Organized into the folder on the left-hand side, and a status in the middle to show you where right now you're in the process of preparing your report. How many objects right now in progress, in review, or already sent to the auditors. Remember when I mentioned that it's all be done with just 2 buttons? I promise you that. Let me show you what I meant. And the first thing that I will show you right now in demonstration, let's open our balance sheet. I will search for the balance sheet, and it will be exactly the balance sheet of our client. Right now, I want to upload a new trial balance into the system, and I want to show you how numbers will change across the board. And let me emphasize over here, I want to be clear here. Client will upload the data. So like our visitors here will upload the data into the system, not Gravity. Client is always in control of their data. But for this demonstration, I would like to upload a trial balance. Let me show you what I meant. This is my trial balance that I wanted to upload into the system with one click of button. And after this, my statements need to reflect new value for cash for the general fund. So let's do this. I will click only one button over here, upload raw data. I will select my trial balance from my computer right now and click upload. And soon as I will upload this file, my cash for general fund need to reflect this information. And please take a look how Gravity automatically, in a spot, in just 10 seconds, update my cash for the general fund from 2 million to 9 million. That's crazy, right? But this is a technology. And my trial balance refresh all of the values, especially things like cash account. It knows that it needs to update the cash account. What update happened instantly, it's flow to all of the statements inside the report. And this is what the speed that you can expect from our solution. Another thing that I want to open for you, MD&A section. So if I will go to MD&A section over here, I'm sure that you're familiar with this section inside the annual report. It's that section that you're doing on the last minute. So say I want to add extra bullet point. I will just do it exactly as I'm doing it in daily basis. Fund balance, for example, some increase, things like that. Very easy. It's not a rocket science. You're using the tool that you're already familiar with. And right now, let's imagine that I want to print this page. I will click one button, print preview. And behind the scene, Gravity is doing something pretty amazing. It all auto-adjusts the spacing across the paragraphs. Make sure all fonts and margin are aligned. Insert tab marks on the left to meet published standard. All of the extracurricular work team may have had to do before or to be a part-time designer, Gravity will generate in 30 seconds. Let's wait for a bit and you will see the result of our publication. And here you go. This is our final result. Things like margin on the side is equal to the spacing between the paragraphs, our tab marks on the side adding automatically, and my new bullet point populating just on the fly.
Wow.
So whatever it's time saving, audit preparation, or just making the report season much pleasant, Gravity is designed to make the pain out of the process while giving you control and confidence.
That's fantastic. And I'll probably come back to both of you on this next one. A couple of folks are asking a variation of a similar question around automation, improving collaboration between finance teams, auditors, as well as city leadership. Can you speak to that a little bit on what you're seeing with this platform and how those relationships are improving and how the collaboration between those teams are improving within our customers?
Yeah, George, I can answer for this question first, if you don't mind. I think
Sure.
It's a great question, Wayne, while I'm sharing my screen. Collaboration is one of the biggest pain points that I'm uncovering from the demos. I just finished onboarding from one of the Los Angeles school district team, and they had 8 people working together to compile the report. That's a lot.
Wow. Yeah, no doubt.
And you can imagine that's where things get messy.
Mm-hmm.
Right? You are got version confusion, duplicates files, delays in approvals, and whole lot of wait, what did the file used for? That's exactly what Gravity was built to solve. And let me show you the few ways automation makes collaboration much smoother. The first one, you're working in a centralized system. There is no more wondering which version is a final one, right? You're trying to find this final version that you was working with. Gravity keeps everything centralized. Everyone, whenever it's a finance team, auditors, executives, is working on the same live version of the report. You always know where things saved. Another point that I want to make, that version history and audit trail. Let me quickly show you on my screen. Every document in Gravity has version history and clear audit trail. So I can see right now exactly this is what I populated and what exactly happened on April 9th. If anything gets updated, it's fully tracked. This makes it super easy for auditors to see what changed, who changed it, and when. It also builds confidence across the team because there is transparency at every step, right? And another thing that I want to show you, it's a workflow. Here's where it gets even better. Let me show you over here. Gravity has approval workflow built into the system. Each section has assigned to the right person with role-based permission, an automatic email notification. When it's time to review and approve, you will receive a notification from Gravity. This speeds everything up. No more bottleneck or chasing people down by the emails. And the last thing that I want to tell you, it's real-time visibility for leadership. Executive and directors don't have to wait for someone to complete the updates. They can log in into the system, log in into Gravity, and see real-time progress in a dashboard, which means fewer email chains, fewer meetings, and more trust into the process. So my final thoughts, and over here I can show you our ecosystem again. Automation doesn't just save time, it actually empowers our team, and communication and collaboration become easier. In my opinion, it's a big win.
That's fantastic. And I appreciate, yeah, letting you put you on the spot here and doing these live demos. I mean, it really is exciting to see, how this automation isn't just about efficiency, but it also sounds like it's really about giving finance teams time back through tools to focus on what really matters. This is exciting.
Cheryl, the one when
yeah, go ahead, George, please.
That wheel started spinning, my heart stopped. I thought, oh, how long is that wheel going to
I know, right? You never know when you do a live demo.
Yeah, and
it's always the time.
It spun for like 30 seconds, and then the whole thing was done. It was amazing.
Yeah, that's really fantastic. George, I'd love, now that you've seen the platform live and you've seen it for your own eyes, I would love just a final thought from you in terms of your thoughts around Gravity and the value that it can bring our joint customers.
I mean, if I was running the city right now and you showed me this, I'd be asking my staff, how do you justify not utilizing this tool, right? Because if it saves you 85% of the time, we can utilize your time other ways and also have you do things that are more satisfying and more productive. I mean, it seems it's about as close to a no-brainer as you could think.
Well, I appreciate that very much. And I know that we're coming to the end of our time, but I imagine that a number of our customers on this call are interested in having a further conversation with us. So I think we're going to put up a slide that just shows how folks can get in touch with us. There we go. So if you would like to hear more from us, from either Avenu or Gravity, please start with, please start with succeed@avenueinsights.com, and George and his team will direct you to the right place. We're so appreciative of the Avenu team inviting the Gravity team to join you all today. A lot of really key takeaways that I got out of this conversation. Certainly, I think I probably had underestimated just how overwhelmed and manual this process can be and time consuming. It really is exciting to see just how much automation can reduce the reporting time. We heard the stat a few times by up to 85% while ensuring compliance every step of the way. I love the real-time data, allowing our customers to improve their financial decision-making. A lot of automation for fewer audit issues, strengthening trust, strengthening collaboration. And I'll leave you with, Gravity and Avenu. We're just so excited to be able to work together to offer integrated solutions for our customers and to modernize government finance. So if you have any questions or you'd like to hear more from us, please reach out. And thank you again for spending time with us today. Thank you, Anna. Thank you, George. I learned a ton and really appreciate this conversation.
Great job, Anna.
Thank you.
Take care.
Bye.